I was pondering, what to talk about today, and getting hated on for telling the truth, or have you hated on yourself for not facing the truth sooner about something or someone or some belief system even? I grew up with a family that whenever I was dubbed the shit disturber, because I would see truth in things and blurt it out, and it wasn't especially welcome in a lot of times. And throughout my whole life, there were things that I was unconsciously picking up or psychically sensitive to and bringing it up in conversation. And a lot of times that would turn people off. So, over the years, I just learned to shut it down and tried to function with that type of non-belief or non-truth, not being authentic within myself. And I think that a lot of people struggle with that, being or seeing the truth, but not able to grapple it, or not able to speak about it or even act upon it. I was reflecting on, the last 3 years, and how a lot of people are still in the dark about what really happened. And we've all got our set of beliefs and what we think is happening, how we've been herded like cattle into a chute for a particular agenda. So, back in 2020, I sat down with a friend of mine, and we would often exchange readings. And so we just wanted to look at this energy of what we were facing, right? Whether this sickness or illness was something really as threatening or as concerning as many were making it out to be. So we didn't know. Of course, nobody knew. So in looking at the energy, I saw the very first picture I got was a Chinese dragon and an American flag. And I thought about it, and I wondered about it. And then I said, well, what is this? And the message I got from my guides was, this is economic warfare. Okay. And it's a bioweapon. Okay. That's not so pretty, is it? And then I asked, is it intentional or was it accidental? And my guides responded, it's 50-50. So with that bit of information, I made my own decisions. I made decisions on how I was going to live my life. And if you've heard my story, I've talked about it before, how, over 30 years ago, the doctors told me to go home and prepare my affairs, death or wheelchair. And so I made that conscious decision back then. It took me some time moving through the grief and the despair and the utter confusion and uncertainty with no real guidance of where to go with that, and having to learn to trust myself that I'm going to figure it out. So a lot of times it's, sidestepping the patterns or the beliefs that we've been fed since childhood. And even there again, after being on this journey over 40 years, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm changing again. Like, I'm starting to eat meat. I used to be a vegan. I used to be a vegetarian. I did detoxes, 30-day detoxes I brag about all the time, And so now I'm doing a different form of detox, and I'm challenging myself based and going against what conventional wisdom has told us for decades, right? And starting to see other leaders and other spiritual people doing the same, which is just literally blowing my mind. Why? We're waking up to breaking up patterns and sets of belief systems that have been operating through our consciousness, the race consciousness. And I'm not talking about the color of our skin, but just the human race. And, whether it's our culture and we believe that, women should be a certain role or should do a certain thing, or whether it's, a particular, religious belief that controls or dominates us. What I find is we're in a phase of letting go of our beliefs, letting go of our judgments, letting go of our perception of ourself. And in all the work I do is starting to understand that we are energetic beings. Well, actually, we're spirit and we're having a human experience. And so as this consciousness starts to permeate more and more of what we do, reshaping our thoughts, reshaping our decisions, reshaping our active role in this human shell or form. So letting go of all of what you think you are and stepping into that superpower of who you are, trusting those emotions are a superpower. I tried to squash mine. I was always told how sensitive I was. Yeah, that's a superpower, right? And now the trick is not letting those emotions control me or limit my abilities to manifest. And so that's where all of this manifesting idea, this law of attraction, is so important. But understanding the law of cause and effect. As you feel, as you think, you're sending out a pulse, you're sending out a vibration into the world. And then the actions you take, are they in alignment with the core of who you are? When those all come into alignment, when you're able to act in the way that you're truly vibrating at, not a mismatch like we talked about yesterday, that's when you create credibility. And that's when you generate a force field that literally begins drawing to you what you want. So, I remember working with a gal, Jessica, and Jessica and I have been longtime friends now. And when Jessica first came to me, I remember, speaking of telling the truth, right? So Jessica came to me, and I remember she met me at a psychic fair. That was when I was doing those gigs. And Jessica came, and I remember I had to sit with my eyes closed. And she asked me when her and her partner were going to have a baby. And I remember looking at the energy and thinking, and I remember opening my eyes and looking at her deep in her eyes, saying, listen to me, and listen to me closely. Your light is dim. I'll never forget that. It was like it jolted me, and I believe it jolted her, because she was focusing on the wrong thing, right? But her belief system, actually at the time, she was subject to doctors telling her she could never conceive. She had rheumatoid arthritis. And so besides that, the boyfriend wasn't a good match. And so she was hell-bent going down that path. Her body clock was probably ticking away. And I could see that if she didn't take care of some physical problems, she wasn't going to be long for this world. Now, I'm always really careful in how I tell people some of these very important truths, and a lot of times they don't want to hear it, right? Fortunately, Jessica took heed, and perhaps it was the tone of my voice and my disciplined focus on that matter. She did get health recorrection. We worked together. She worked in my mentoring program. And honest to God, she did amazing turnarounds. Not only did she prove the doctors wrong, she was able to conceive a child. Not only that, she got rid of that loser. She found a new guy. She had a baby with him. They got married. She manifested her very first home, and she started her own business. And she was, going from a caregiver to a hypnotherapist, and build a thriving business. So all of that in 9 months. Right? Most people don't get done in a lifetime. So congratulations to her. She did amazing work, but she had to clear those limiting beliefs, not only what the doctors told her is possible, but what she wanted to create in her life. And, I think we're here to fulfill a purpose. We're here to fulfill our heart's desires. But sometimes we're programmed, and we have these limiting beliefs that stop us, and we don't know they're there. We can't see them. So, as we're waking up to the truth that government leaders and our medical systems and politicians or our parents have been misguiding us, and maybe it's our own, it's our journey, of course, to bump up against these processes and learn to break out of that eggshell and create our own world based on new belief system and new truths, and manifest what we want to have in this world. And so I, continually try to have amusement with where we see discrepancies in the outside world, and check back in with myself. How am I living? Am I living in alignment with what I truly believe? And now I'm being forced to speak about it too, in a hopefully delicate way. But yes, speaking our truth to ourselves is most important, and having that alignment from the core of who you are and expressing it in the world, how you act, how you think, how you speak, how you show up is very, very key. And so being hated on for speaking the truth, well, yeah, it hurt my sensitive feelings for a minute, maybe sometimes more than a minute. I remember having a friend who came to me. She was a Christian lady, and we knew each other from Canada. And she told me she could no longer be my friend because I was doing the work of the devil. And so at the time, I was secure in who I was and what I was doing. Years before that, I wasn't as solid in that set of beliefs. But when she did that, I just went, okay, I guess so. It's your call, but one day you'll understand. And sure enough, she took a trip to Ireland, and she had a trip. She was at the Giant's Causeway, and she had a vision. And she had a vision of the Virgin Mary. And then she called me years later and she said, I know now what you're talking about. So I'm going to leave it there today, understanding that, if we're hated on for speaking the truth, so be it. And, support ourselves or surround ourselves with like-minded individuals. And it's not always about having to prove that I'm correct, but I get to choose my life based on what I see as a vision of truth, and experiment, challenge myself to think different, or imagine if my life was different, if I had a different vision, how could it be, right? Maybe I'm limiting it just with that. In fact, I know we do. So it's limiting us from healing our perceptions of what we think is true. We make judgments on, and it really only divides us, not only us and each other, but it divides me as an individual. It divides you as yourself. So the whole idea is to come into the union of who we are, body, mind, soul, on your own unique journey. With that, have a magical journey today and moving forward. Remember that your energy vibes today is what's creating tomorrow. So make it magical. Talk to you tomorrow, 11 o'clock Eastern time.